Shabbat Shalom, Bruce. It is 10 a.m. I'm not seeing that we're live yet, but we'll say good morning, Shabbat Shalom, for those of you who have not yet put on your talit, although I did. We turn to page 289 in our Siddur for the blessing of wearing talit. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehitatef b'tzitzit. And we turn now in our Siddur to page 290 Matovu. Matovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. Matovu ohalecha Yaakov Mishkenotecha Yisrael, Va'ani berov chastecha avo veitecha, eshtachave el heicho kodshecha be'yiratecha. And we turn to page 291 for this reading. Let me get the mic. Page 291. Start. Am I supposed to start on that side?
No, good. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. With divine wisdom you have made our bodies, combining veins, arteries, and vital organs into a finely balanced network. Wondrous maker and sustainer of life, if one of them were to fail, how well we are aware we would lack the strength to sustain life before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, source of our health and strength. Baruch atah Adonai, rofei kol basar, machlit lasot.
Amen. And we continue on page 292. I'm going to pass the microphone back. 292 in the brackets.
The soul that you give me, O God, is pure. You created and formed it and breathed it into me, and within me you sustain it. So long as I have breath, therefore I will give thanks to you, my God and God of all ages, source of all being, loving God of every human spirit.
Baruch atah Adonai, asher bi'ado nefesh kol chai, v'ruach kol besar ish.
I would like to thank everybody for the meal that you sent, for the cards and the donations, and for caring at a time of real distress for us. Thank you all. Thank you.
We continue our Nisim B'chol Yom, our miracles of every day. Those not super duper miracles, but the things that we shouldn't take for granted, and the things that we're glad to have in our lives. So I would just say that, Bruce, that was a nice segue, being grateful for having community and support in a time of grief. Are there other Nisim B'chol Yom that others would like to share? The opportunity to gather together is Shabbat. And if you're watching through the blessing of technology, I invite you to add your Nisim B'chol Yom, your things for which you're grateful in the chat or the comments. This week I'm feeling sadness and gratitude that I live in a place that's a country where I am secure, and thinking about those in Turkey. And those natural disasters or those things that happen that are beyond what could I do to prevent that, or what can I do now to help? And I feel great appreciation for the life that I have and the security in which I'm living in the here and now. Another one?
You know, we had meetings here about anti-Semitism and strangers in our land and how you treat them. And I feel such pride when I see the United States is in Turkey. They're pulling people out of this world. They don't hold their enemies exposed. That's what you do. You do right.
The appreciation for the help that our country is giving.
Meetings we've been having. You're doing the right thing.
And by the same token, Israel has surgeon units, provider units, helping in, I believe, Syria and Turkey.
Right, Israel's presence in these places.
Every natural disaster outside of the U.S., you find these Israeli soldiers there helping, regardless.
One more, and then we'll dive into our prayer. So, regardless of who that person is, enemy or foe, in a time of crisis like this, we reach out, we help. And we thank God for these miracles on page 293 in the brackets. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lasech bivina lavchin ben yom uvein laila. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokev kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rokah haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechin mitzadei gaber. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten layaev koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hama'avir sheina meinai udnuma me'afapai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani b'tselem Elohim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani bat chorin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael bigvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oter Yisrael batif ara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. On page 298, if the next person with the microphone could either read or pass it to the next person. 298.
These are the things that are limitless, of which person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study mornings and evenings, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted to prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all.
We continue on page 302, page 302. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך העליון, ולזמר לשמך העליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך, ואמונתך בלילות. עלי עשור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון בכינור. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. כי שימחתני אדוני בפועלך, במעשה ידיך רנן. מה גדלו מעשיך אדוני, מאוד עמקו מחשבותיך. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. We continue with Ashrei on page 303. Ashrei yoshvei beitecha, od yehalelucha selah. Ashrei ha'am shekacha lo, Ashrei ha'am sh'Adonai Eloha. Tila l'David, aromimcha Elohai ha'melech, v'avarcha shimcha le'olam va'ed. B'chol yom avarchecha, v'yalela shimcha b'olam va'ed. Gadol Adonai u'mhulam me'od, v'li gdulato ein cheker. Dor lador yishabach ma'asecha, u'gvuratchecha yagidu. Adar kevod hodecha, v'divrei niflotecha asicha. V'ezuz norotecha yomeru, u'gdulatcha asaprena. Zecher rabtucha yabiu, v'tzidchatcha yiranenu. Chanun v'rachum Adonai, erech apayim u'gdol chesed. Tov Adonai lakol, v'rachamav al kol ma'asav. Yoducha Adonai kol ma'asecha, v'chasidecha yivarchucha. Kevod malchutcha yomeru, u'gvuratcha yidaberu. Lodia lifnei hadam gevurotav, u'chvod hadar malchuto. Malchutcha malchut kol olamim, u'memshaltecha bechol dor v'ador. Someach Adonai l'chol hanoflim, v'zokef l'chol hakfufim. Einei chol elecha yisaberu, v'ata noten lahem et ochlam b'ito. Poteach et yadecha, u'masbiach l'chol chai ratzon. Tzadik Adonai v'chol doracha, v'chasiv v'chol ma'asav. Karov Adonai l'chol korav, l'chol asher yikra'u be'emet. Ritzon Yireav Yaseh, V'et Shavatam Yishma V'yoshiem. Shomer Adonai et kol oavav, V'et kol harashaim yashmid. Tilat Adonai yidaber pi, V'varek kol basar shem kodsho leolam va'ed. V'anachnu v'nivarech ya, Me'ata v'ad olam. Hallelujah. We continue on page 312. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabba, v'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uvyomechon uchayedecho beYisrael, ba'agala, uvizman karib, v'imeru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevarach, le'olam u'lomei amaya, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitromam, v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitalev, v'yitalal, shemei dekudesha barichu, leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiram bialma, v'imeru, amen. As we're able, we rise for Baruch. Baruch, excuse me. La 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la. Baruch hu et Adonai hamivorach, Baruch Adonai hamivorach leolam va'ed. If someone would lead the reading on page 314, I'm going to see what I can do about the sound.
The world is sunlight, restoring the soul, rejoicing the heart, bringing light to the eyes, more welcome than gold, a Torah from heaven. I have no light to give the morning, my Torah. My special human gift is words. As I bring my words forth from silence, welcome them, you who redeems the sun from darkness. Baruch atah Adonai Yotzer Hamaru.
As we continue on page 318. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. May be seated. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני Adonai Elohechem. We continue on page 321. Next person.
Sing the song of men and women, joined in understanding and respect. The song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come. The song of a land once ravaged by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more. The song of a world redeemed, the song of peace.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nehedar b'kodesh, norat tehilot osef eleh, norat tehilot osef eleh. Shira chadasha shibechu gehulim, l'shimcha sfat hayam, yachad kulam hodu, v'himlichu ve'ameru, Adonai himlo le'olam va'ed, Adonai himlo le'olam va'ed. Tzur Yisrael, kuma be'ezrat Yisrael, Ufdechinu mecha, Yehuda ve'Yisrael. Go aleinu, Adonai tzavot shemo, Kedosh Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. As we're able, we rise for tefillah. Adonai sipatai tivtachu fi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol v'Hagibor v'Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei HaKol, V'Zocher Chastei Avot V'Imahot, U'Mevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh hakol atah Rav lehoshia, Mashiv haruach u'morid hagashem, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Sohomech Noflim Verofech Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishene Afar, Michamocha Bal Gevurot, Umido Melach, Melech Memit Umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'emanat Halachayot HaKol, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechaye HaKol. Nekadesh et Shimcha ba'olam, Kishem shemakdishim oto bishmei marom, kakatuv al yad neviecha, v'kara zel zeh ve'amar, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzebaot, Melocho haaretz, Kevodo. Adir, Adirenu, Adonai, Adonenu, Madir, Shimcha b'chol haaretz, Baruch Kevod Adonai, Mimkomo. Echad hu Eloheinu, Hu Avinu, Hu Malkeinu, Hu Moshienu, V'hu Yashmienu, Berachamav Leinei Kol Chai. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Imloch Adonai leolam, Elohayich Zion, Lidor Vador, Hallelujah. Lidor Vador Nagid God Lecha, Ulenetzach Nitzachim Kedushatcha Nakdish, V'shivcha Eloheinu, Mipinu lo yamush leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. May be seated. As we turn to the top of page 211. Yismechu v'malechutecha shomrei 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 Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Also 329 in the brackets. Yismechu v'malechutecha shomrei 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 Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Mekadeshei Mekadeshei Shavi Shabbat, Kulam Yisbe'u Ve'yitangu Mituvecha Shabbat, Yismechu Ve'malechutecha, Shomrei 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 Shabbat V'korei oneg Shabbat, Yismechu Ve'malechutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. V'hashvi ratzita bo v'kidashto Shabbat. Chemdad yamim oto karata Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Zecher lemase, lemase v'reishit Shabbat. Zecher lemase, lemase v'reishit Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat, yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. On page 330, if someone could read that passage, please.
On this Shabbat day, as you graciously receive our prayers, help us to hear your call. Grant us enough health to fulfill our duties and the compassion we need to attend to others. Teach us humility that we may perceive our own faults, and grant us the wisdom to be forgiving of others. Give us the courage to be true to our highest selves and the charity to see the best in those around us. Give us patience enough not to become discouraged, hope enough to overcome all fears for the future, and faith enough to know your presence. O source of blessing, look with favor upon us. May our offerings be acceptable to you. We praise you, Adonai, whom alone we serve in reverence.
Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levadcha b'yir'a na'avod. On page 332 at the bottom of the page.
For
332 in the brackets at the bottom of the page.
the expanding grandeur of creation, worlds known and unknown, galaxies beyond galaxies, filling us with awe and challenging our imaginations.
Modim anachnu lach.
For this fragile planet Earth in times and tides, its sunsets and seasons.
Modim anachnu lach.
For the joy of human life, its wonders and surprises, its hopes and achievements.
Modim anachnu lach.
For human community, our common past and future hope, our oneness transcending all separation, our capacity to work for peace and justice in the midst of hostility and oppression.
Modim anachnu lach.
For high hopes and noble causes, for faith without fanaticism, for understanding of views not shared.
Modim anachnu lach.
For all who have labored and suffered for a fairer world, who have lived so that others might live in dignity and freedom.
Modim anachnu lach.
For human liberties and sacred rights, for opportunities to change and grow, to affirm and choose.
Modim anachnu lach.
We pray that we may live not by our fears, but by our hopes, not by our words, but by our deeds.
Baruch atah Adonai, hato shimcha ulachana lehodot. Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Chen v'chesed, chen v'chesed v'rachamim. Chen v'chesed, chen v'chesed v'rachamim, v'rachamim. Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Amecha, Sim Shalom, Tova Uvracha, Sim Shalom, Tova Uvracha. We continue our prayer now silently, whether we are led by the words on the pages of our Siddur through page 337, or those other prayers throughout the prayer books, or those meditations in our hearts. We continue silently. Yihul ratzon imre fi, Yihul ratzon imre fi, ve'yon libi lefanecha, Adonai tzuri ve'goali. Ose shalom bimromav, Uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imeru. Amen. We continue now with Seder Kriyat Torah for the reading of the Torah, which we can find in our Siddur on page 362. 362. As we're able, we rise, and Jacqueline and Sari, would you like the honor of opening the Ark this morning? Ein kamocha Elohim Adonai ve'ein kema'asecha malchutcha malchut kol olamim umemshaltecha bechol dor v'dor Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai imloch leolam va'ed Adonai ozeh amo yitain Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, u'devar Adonai mirushalayim. Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah, Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah, Le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo, Gadlu Ladonai iti, Uneromemo Shemo Yachtav. Lecha Adonai Hagedula v'Hagedura v'Hatiferet v'Hanetzach v'Hahod כי כל בשמיים ובארץ, כי כל בשמיים ובארץ, לך אדוני הממלכה, וימית נעשה לכל ראש. ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ותגל הארץ. ירם הים, thank you, ירם הים, ירם הים ומלוא, ירם הים, ירם הים, ירם הים ומלוא. Oh, I just had everybody be seated. That's okay. We can remain seated for the introduction of our Torah portion, which this Shabbat is Yitro. And Yitro is the name of Jethro, Moses' father-in-law. And the part I'm going to be reading today is the Ten Commandments, which comes from the book of Exodus, chapter 20. So if you want to follow along in the Plout commentary, it starts on page 539, and then you'll have to jump to 547 as the commandments progress. And anywhere there's the Hebrew translation, the Hebrew in the translation, you might have to turn pages thereafter, because this particular Chumash has so much commentary about the commandments in chunks. We start on page 539. Now, it is the custom, if you're comfortable doing so, to stand while we receive the Ten Commandments, just as we stood at the shores of the sea, right? The expression standing at Sinai. So if you're comfortable, I invite you to rise for the reading of the Ten Commandments. And as a community, we will do the Aliyah blessings before and after the Torah. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach, Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah. Vayedaber Elohim et kol ha'devarim ha'ela lemor. Anochi Adonai Elohecha, Asher hotzeiticha me'eretz Mitzrayim, mibeit avadim, Lo yeh lecha Elohim acherim al panai, Lo ta'aseh lecha vesel, v'chol tmuna asher b'shamayim mima'al, v'asher ba'aretz mitachat, v'asher b'mayim mitachat la'aretz, Lo tishtacha ve'lahem, v'lo ta'ovdeim, Ki anochi Adonai Elohecha, El kana poked avon avot, al banim v'al shaleshim, v'al reveim l'sonai, v'osei chesed la'alafim la'ohavai, u'l'shomrei mitzvotai. Lo tisa et shem Adonai Elohecha lashav, ki lo yinakeh Adonai et asher yisa et shemo lashav. Zachor et Yom HaShabbat l'kodsho, Sheshet Yamim ta'avod ve'asita chol malachtecha, ve'yom hashvi'i Shabbat l'Adonai Elohecha. Lo ta'aseh chol malacha ata uvincha uvitecha avdecha ve'amatecha uvhemtecha ve'gercha asher bisharecha. Ki Sheshet Yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et ha'aretz, et hayam v'et kol asher bam, v'yanach bayom hashvi'i. Al kain be'erach Adonai et yom hashabbat, v'yikadshehu. Kabed et avicha v'et imecha, Lama'an ya'arichun yamecha al ha'adama asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach. Lo tirtzach, lo tin'af, lo tignov, lo ta'aneh v'reacha eid shaker. Lo tachmod, beit reacha. Lo tachmod eshet reacha, v'avdo, v'amato, v'shoro, v'chamoro, v'chol asher l'reacha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. May be seated. As we turn our thoughts and prayers to those who are in need of healing, we turn in our Siddur to page 371. For those of you who are watching through the blessing of technology and you wish to add the name of the loved ones whom you're thinking of who are in need of healing, you can add them to the chat at this time. I share with you now the members of our extended Adith Emmanuel family who are in need of healing, and those in the sanctuary can add names following. Susan Casper, Lern Green Sr., Barry Hodges, Shirley Tannenbaum, Harriet Eisner, Orly Boudet, Carla Teisch, Mackenzie Mazel, Beth Shelley, Elaine Moskowitz, Linda Drachman, Sam Rosenberg, Chaim Ben David, Eileen Davison, Craig Davison, Hugh Morton, Art Bond, Roberta Levine, Jordan Maverick Steinberg, Deanna Amariello, Lisa Galda, Brian Zabel, Ed Crosby, Jonathan Burr, Myra Kaplan, Jeff Schaefer, Lulu Rivuela, Marion Gwertz, Aaron Tepper, Lily Tepper, Louis Alahut, Mary Parker, Tricia Tepper, Carol Schaefer, Mary Mednitsky, Jocelyn Jackson, Jen Jones, Shirley Friedlander, Michael Infanti, Gary Garnick, Ann Marsden, Rick Ulrich, Ileana Cohn, and others whose names we should add at this time. Baruch atah Adonai, Rofei HaCholim. Mi shebeirach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi shebeirach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. As we're able, we rise as we lift and dress Torah. Larry, would you come up to help, please? You'll be able to see the 10 Commandments, and you'll notice by the way it's laid out, and there's one area where it just says low, 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 right? You shall not, you shall not, you shall not. You'll see it. V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe, v'zot haTorah, v'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe, v'zot haTorah, lifnei b'nei Yisrael, v'zot haTorah. Al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe, v'zot haTorah, v'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe, v'zot haTorah, v'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe, v'zot haTorah. V'zot haTorah. May be seated. As we turn now in our Chumash, in our Torah commentary, to our Haftarah reading for this Shabbat morning, which comes from the book of Isaiah. And if you want to follow along, it's on page 710. 710. Isaiah chapter 6, verse 1 and following. And I'm not sure where the microphone is right now, but if the person who has the microphone would feel comfortable reading the words of Haftarah, we'll start with the blessings first on page 372. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim v'ratza v'divreihem hane'emarim be'emet Baruch atah Adonai Habocher Batorah Uv'Moshe Avdo Uv'Yisrael Amo Uv'Invi'ei Ha'emet V'Tzedek.
In the year that King Uzziah died, I beheld my Lord seated on a high and lofty throne, and the skirts of his robe filled the temple. Seraphs stood in attendance on him. Each of them had 6 wings. With 2 he covered his face, with 2 he covered his legs, and with 2 he would fly. And one would call to the other, Holy, 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 the Lord of hosts. His presence fills all the earth. The doorposts would shake at the sound of the one who called, and the house kept filling with smoke. Woe, I cried, woe is me, I am lost. For I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips. Yet my own eyes have beheld the King, Lord of hosts. Then one of the seraphs flew over to me with a live coal, which he had taken from the altar with a pair of tongs. He touched it to my lips and declared, Now that this has touched your lips, your guilt shall depart, and your sin be purged away. Then I heard the voice of my Lord saying, Whom shall I send? Who will go for us? And I said, Here am I, send me. And he said, Go say to that people, Hear, indeed, but do not understand. See, indeed, but do not grasp. Dull that people's mind, stop its ears, and seal its eyes, lest, seeing with its eyes and hearing with its ears, it also grasp with its mind, and repent and save itself. I asked, How long, my Lord? And he replied, Till towns lie waste without inhabitants, and houses without people, and the ground lies waste and desolate. For the Lord will banish the population, and deserted sites are many in the midst of the land. But while a tenth part yet remains in it, it shall repent. It shall be ravaged like the terebinth and the oak, of which stumps are left even when they are felled. Its stump shall be a holy seed. In the reign of Ahaz, son of Jotham, son of Uzziah, king of Judah, king of Rezin of Aram, and King Pekah, son of Remaliah of Israel, marched upon Jerusalem to attack it, but they were not able to attack it. Now, when it was reported to the house of David that Aram had allied itself with Ephraim, their hearts and the hearts of their people trembled as trees of the forest sway before a wind. But the Lord said to Isaiah, "Go out with your son, Shear-Jashub, to meet Ahaz at the end of the conduit of the upper pool by the road of the fuller's field. And say to him, be firm and be calm, do not be afraid and do not lose heart, on account of those 2 smoking stubs of firebrands, on account of the raging of Rezin, and his Arameans and the sons of Remaliah. Because the Arameans with Ephraim and the son of Remaliah have plotted against you, saying, we will march against Judah and invade and conquer it, and we will set up as king in it the son of Tabeel. For a child has been born to us, a son has been given us, and authority has settled on his shoulders. He has been named, the mighty God is planning grace, the eternal Father, a peaceable ruler. In token of abundant authority and of peace without limit, upon David's throne and kingdom, that it may be firmly established in justice and in equity, now and evermore. The zeal of the Lord of hosts shall bring this to pass.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol haolamim, tzadik bechol hadorot, ha'el ha'ne'eman, ha'omer ve'oseh, hamdaber u'mkayem, shekol derav emet v'tzedek, al haTorah v'al ha'avodah v'al hanviim v'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu likdusha v'limnucha lichavod u'ltifaret al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach u'mvarchim otach Yitbarach Shimcha befi kol chai, tamid leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh haShabbat. And so we turn now to words of Devar Torah. And I wanted to share this morning, and I'm going to see if I can do this as well online, except my screen went blank, is share with us which Decalogue. Which Decalogue? So Decalogue is that English word, I think it's got some Latin or Greek roots, that says, which 10 commandments became the 10 commandments? So I'm going to hand out, you can take one and pass it back. Some people might need to share. And I'm going to put in the chat this, a link to this, but I'll be sharing everything pretty much aloud. Let's see if this... And if you're not getting it through I put it in Facebook, I don't know how to do it in YouTube. Let's see if I can. You can also go to the Shabbat email from Friday, and you can, let's see, I don't think I can put a comment in the YouTube. I cannot. So you can also go back to the Friday email, and it says for Shabbat morning, click here for this morning's handout. So what we shared this morning from the Torah we read is, oh, we have an extra one here. Wait, 2 extra, 3 extra. Who else needs? Okay, terrific. As the Exodus 20 version of the 10 Commandments. You might know already that there are 2 versions of the 10 Commandments. One we find in Exodus, and that's the one we use normally as our 10 Commandments. And then there's another version in the book of Deuteronomy, and you can study another time. We could do the comparisons, the difference between the 2 versions of the 10 Commandments. This one before you is Exodus 20. However, there's another passage later on in the book of Exodus, in Exodus 34, that might have been called the 10 Commandments. Now, in English, we call this the 10 Commandments. In Hebrew, we call it Aseret HaDibrot. Aseret being 10, Eser, Ha, the Dibrot, the utterances. So here, you can hear the word davar or divarim, the words. Here, I didn't put the Hebrew in for the second version in Exodus 34. It's been called Aseret HaDivarim, which is actually the last 2 words in the conclusion. So let's read first, and then we can compare, we can contrast, and then try to figure out why Exodus 20 won. You know, it's the one we call the 10 Commandments. Do you like that one better? What parts of Exodus 34 might you like better? So you'll see I divided it into introduction, 10 Commandments, and conclusion. And I purposely did not copy it back to back because I think it's almost easier once we read through if you want to look back and forth, if you want to tear off the first page and look at them side by side. So, Exodus 20. God spoke all these words, saying, and what did God say? I, Adonai, am your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods beside me. You shall not make for yourself a sculptured image or any likeness of what is in the heavens above or on the earth below or in the waters under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them. For I, God, Adonai, am an impassioned God, visiting the guilt of the parents upon the children, upon the 3rd and upon the 4th generations of those who reject me, but showing kindness to the 1000th generation who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not swear falsely by the name of your God, Adonai, for Adonai will not clear one who swears falsely by God's name. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but on the 7th day is a Sabbath of God Adonai. You shall not do any work, you, your son, your daughter, your male or female slave, or your cattle, or the stranger who is within your settlements. For 6 days Adonai made heaven and earth and sea and all that it is in them, and then rested on the 7th day. Therefore Adonai blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor your father and your mother, that you may long endure on the land that your God Adonai is assigning to you. You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or male or female slave, or ox or ass, or anything that is your neighbor's. That completes the 10 Commandments, and now there's a little wrap-up, and all the people witnessed the thunder and the lightning and the blare of the horn and the mountain smoking, and when the people saw it, they fell back and stood at a distance. Here we have, now we're going to jump to Exodus 34 on the next page, and if you want, you can flip. If you want, you can rip the pages apart and kind of look at that side by side. You'll see the introduction for Exodus 34 is a little bit longer. God said, I hereby make a covenant. Before all your people I will work such wonders as have not been wrought on all the earth or in any nation. And all the people who are with you shall see how awesome are Adonai's deeds, which I will perform for you. Mark well that I command you this day. I will drive out before you the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Beware of making a covenant with the inhabitants of the land against which you are advancing, lest they be a snare in your midst. No, you must tear down their altars, smash their pillars, and cut down their posts. And so here we go on the actual 10 Commandments, these, Aseret HaDevarim. So, for you must not worship any other God, because Adonai, whose name is impassioned, is an impassioned God. I'm going to just pause, just in case people want to look back and forth. You must not make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, for they will lust after the gods and sacrifice to their gods and invite you, and you will eat of their sacrifices. And when you take wives into your households from among their daughters for your sons, their daughters will lust after their gods, and will cause your sons to lust after their gods. You shall not make molten gods for yourself. You shall observe the feast of unleavened bread, eating unleavened bread for 7 days, as I have commanded you, at the set time of the month of Aviv, for in the month of Aviv you went forth from Egypt. Every first issue of the womb is mine. From all your livestock that drop a male as firstling, whether cattle or sheep, but the firstling of an ass you shall redeem with a sheep. If you do not redeem it, you must break its neck, and you must redeem every male firstborn among your children. None shall appear before me empty-handed. Those big pauses in between are kind of marking the different sections. 6 days you shall work, but on the 7th day you shall cease from labor. You shall cease from labor even at plowing time and harvest time. You shall observe the Feast of Weeks. That's Shavuot. Of the first fruits of the wheat harvest, and the Feast of Ingathering at the turn of the year. 3 times a year all your males shall appear before the sovereign Adonai, the God of Israel. I will drive out nations from your path and enlarge your territory. No one will covet your land when you go up to appear before your God Adonai 3 times a year. You shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with anything leavened, and the sacrifice of the feast of Passover shall not be left lying until morning. And the last one, the choice first fruits of your soil you shall bring to the house of your God. Maybe that's the second to last. And then you shall not boil a kid in its mother's milk. And then the conclusion. And Adonai said to Moses, write down these commandments, for in accordance with these commandments I make a covenant with you and with Israel. And he was there with Adonai 40 days and 40 nights. He ate no bread and drank no water, and he wrote down on the tablets the terms of the covenant, the 10 Commandments. So this section of Exodus 34 comes after the golden calf, just to kind of give you the juxtaposition of the 2 sets. Remember, Moses smashes the first set of tablets. Not exactly the same, right? So what do you find different between the 2? What do you find similar? What do you like about either one? And why do you think Exodus 20 was chosen? So where's the microphone? And we'll pass it around. If you could just please state your name before... do you have? Okay, thanks.
Harold Lichtman. First is the question whether they're actually commandments.
Oh, are they commandments? Because we call them Aseret HaDibrot, the 10 utterances, as opposed to the Aseret Mitzvot. Mitzvot being, you shall do this, right? Because if we look, go ahead, keep going.
Well, because if on the
Exodus 20 verses.
Yeah, the 2-14, and even before it, it doesn't say anything, it doesn't use the word commandment.
No, it doesn't say the word commandment. It just says, You
God.
shall,
I understand that.
right, or you
Okay.
shall not, except for if you look at verse 2. Verse 2 just makes a statement. I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, the house of bondage. It doesn't say anything more.
No.
It's almost as if that one's a preamble, and you have to accept that in order for the
Right.
others to follow. That is not a mitzvah, it's more like a statement. Okay?
But-
And then on the 34 version, what are you looking at? Which verse?
It does use the word commandment.
Right. Especially, the beginning it says, I make a covenant, right?
Right.
And at the end, we have, in verse 11, it says, mark well what I command you this day.
Correct.
Right.
So that's the first thing that you start to wonder why 2-14 was listed as the Ten Commandments, because it even says in 27:28
Right, at the
that
conclusion in the
Moses wrote it
second
down on
verse.
the tablets.
There you go.
So where are those tablets?
So good things to notice. Other thoughts? Okay, if you'll say your name first.
I think this is a little bit of an enlightening for me that the quotation.
Can you just speak into the microphone a little closer
It's
to you?
Ivan Rudolph. I didn't realize these sections from chapter 34 were considered commandments. The 10 Commandments, the first group that came, were pure ethics, honoring, respecting. He says, I'm the Lord your God, brought you out of the land of Egypt. You know, like you tell your kids, I'm your father. You
I'm
better
your
listen."
parent. You better listen.
He reminded him all he did for him. I'm your father, you better listen. And then the other, ethics, purely ethical. And these are more down to earth, how you observe your Judaism. And this is from Mishpatim in chapter 34.
I think it might be Mishpatim, but I'm not sure I don't memorize all the Torah portions and their chapter and verse.
No,
But it's, you found it? Okay.
No, I didn't. But,
Okay.
But anyway, it's more commandments of how to live a Jewish life.
So the first one is more ethical, and the second one is more about Jewish life. Thank you. Other things you've noticed or wanted to comment about? Let's see if somebody who hasn't spoken yet has something to share first. Okay. Let's get a voice that hasn't shared yet.
The
Larry.
second part, Larry Marcus.
Thanks.
The second part of Exodus 34, it mentions a specific holiday of Passover
Passover and
other feasts.
Feast of Weeks, which is Shavuot,
Yeah, the Shekalim Regalim.
and the Shalosh Regalim 3 times a year, and the Feast of Ingathering, which is Sukkot. So those 3 festivals are mentioned individually.
Yeah.
Those
Also-
are part of the 10 Commandments to observe those.
Yes. Also, the specific peoples are mentioned in the second one, being driven out and so forth.
Right, in the introduction, God is reminding, not only in what Hal noticed with that I command you, and that God says, and I'm going to specifically drive out before you all these various nations whom are our enemies or who might get in the way of our inhabiting the land. Thank you. You say your name first?
Also, on the second one, it mentions what we refer to as opinion of Ben, that the firstborn belongs to.
So the second version also talks about the firstborn, and that whole idea of redemption of the firstborn, which is a Jewish ritual.
Right, okay.
Right, and it talks about it in the context of our flocks, right? Our possessions. Okay, Did you want to, let's just get some more voices first until, okay.
Harriet Cohen. What is interesting to me here, now let me find it again, about I will drive out nations from your path and enlarge your territory. I find that interesting because I have spoken to devout Christians who believe very strongly that God gives us all the land. And they don't believe in a two-state solution. We've debated about that, and I'm wondering if some of this comes from this. I will drive out nations from your path.
Can you just share with us which verse you're on so that we can?
Yes, I'm sorry, 24. I will drive out nations from your path and enlarge your territory. Alavai, it should only be.
So that was verse 24 in the version of 34, Exodus. It's the one after Mishpati. Kitisa. Okay. And Harold, go ahead.
It seems like the first version, well, I know the first version has been the basis of many laws that have been enacted and has been used as a reference in enacting those laws as it grew, where the second seems to be more of how to lead a Jewish life rather than the laws of the land beyond us.
So I'm going to put words into your mouth and you can tell me if you agree or disagree. The first one seems more universalistic and the second one seems more particularistic to the Jewish way of life.
Yes, but again, the first one has been codified into laws.
And so what's grown out of the first verse, Exodus 20, is these things that we see in the Torah have become laws of many lands, not just, right. Okay,
And
thanks.
the second one is more attuned to Jewish life.
And the second one is the Jewish law.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Other comments? When I first discovered this, I will tell you, or as a rabbi, I said, wait a second. This was not something that I had the opportunity to study or pay attention to when I was in rabbinical school or any earlier time in life. And I found this fascinating. I'm like, it says right here, I mean, look at the last verse in 28. It says, you know, the 10 Commandments. I'm like, but these aren't the ones we have embraced. These aren't the ones we talk about. These aren't the ones we teach in class. And so why not? And I think it has to do with some of the things that you've shared this morning, that Exodus 20 is more universal. It's about, yes, the first side are more, and we do have how to observe Shabbat. There are other religions that observe a day of rest besides Jews. But we don't see Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot observed in other religions. And it's much more particularistic, this chapter 34 version. And the other thing that we find in Exodus 20, I think that you mentioned, Ivan, is the ethics of it. This is sort of a broader, how do we live our lives? And these ethics were the ones that got turned into laws in so many places. And I think it's perhaps for that reason that Exodus 20 superseded 34. Maybe it's also that Exodus 20 was the version that got repeated in Deuteronomy, and that way, but it seems to have that weight. And so what I keep in mind, I don't know if 20 is better than 34, but I think that 20 is more broadly embraced by more people than just the Jewish people. And may these words from Exodus 20 help guide us to live that life in which we are thinking in a more universal way, and that our ethics guide our lives. Shabbat Shalom. As we now return the Torah to the Ark, we turn to page 374. Jacqueline and Sari, would you help me with the ark, please? As we're able, we rise. Eitz chaim hi lemachazikim ba v'tomcheha meushar deracheam darchei noam v'chol netivotecha Shalom, Hashivenu Adonai, Elecha b'nashuva, Chadesh, Chadesh Yameinu, Kekedem. And we remain standing as we turn to page 586, 586 at the bottom of the page. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, la'tet gedula liotzer b'reshit, shelo asanu kagoye haratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, Umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu v'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo Ushemo echad. You may close the doors. Thank you. And we turn our prayers now to those who are no longer with us. And we think of our loved ones whom have recently taken from us, as well as those who, the thousands, the tens of thousands of lives that have been lost in Turkey and Syria, each who has a name behind it. We're on pages 598 and 599, and we remember Frank Gardner, son of Sarah and Bruce. We also think of those who died at the season in years past, whose yahrzeits we observe on this Shabbat. We think of Shirley Vanitsky, Andy Agaloff, Terry R. Altman, Bernard Bass, Stephen Burr, Pearl Cardonic, Mark Dowse, Max Eisner, Esther Glogauer, Samuel Goldman, Carl Goldman, Leon Goldman, Ann B. Herman, George Kadushin, Nettie Kaplan, Teresa Levine, Lena Lindenbaum, Hannah Knappen, Theodore N. Oppenheimer, Sadie Pepper, Eva L. Rosen, Paul Thomas, Barbara Weber, Misha Zach. If you're watching through the blessing of technology and have a name to add, please do so at this time. And I would invite, if you're having another name to add, please do so at this time if you're here in the sanctuary as my glance meets yours. Zikronam Levracha, May their memories be for blessing as we continue with the mourner's Kaddish on page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam omei omaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudasha b'riachu, le'elamin kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, t'amiran b'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'yimru, amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, and comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us say, amen. May be seated. And our hodaot, our announcements, who are we thanking for our kiddush and this morning? The Cohens? So thank you in advance, and just so everyone knows, following services, we all join in the community hall. You're welcome to join us for Kiddush and whatever's there afterward. Other hodaot, other announcements to share? Wait, Joe? Speak to Joe if you're able to come to the spaghetti dinner tonight and you have not yet RSVP'd, and he will make sure you have a strand of spaghetti or two. So for our closing song, any requests? I didn't. How about page, I have to convert from the unbracketed to bracketed. Page 634. Page 634. At the bottom of the page, Maya Fehayom. Maya Fehayom, Shabbat Shalom. Maya Fehayom, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Maya Fehayom. Shabbat, Shalom. Maya Fehayom, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.